family, it's amazing that you don't really think on some things until it was being drawn to your attention. Now, this was literally drawn to my attention, and I never really gave it a serious thought until, like I said before, it was drawn to my attention. Now, we all hear the saying that Americans don't like to work because they're lazy. We hear that constantly. It's programming our mind to believe that Americans don't like to work. Americans love to work. Americans just don't want to work for a minimum wage with no benefits. So you're bringing other Europeans to work here and give them more money than the Americans. So the Americans said to themselves, we are not going to work like dogs and cats and not making enough money for we to survive. And if you think about it, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the leeway that a lot of people have because of Americans make leeway for a lot of people to live the way they live in. Like, case in point, now, back in the Caribbean or the West Indies, every year they will bring up a whole bunch of West Indians to work in America and in Canada to pick oranges, apples, grapefruits, cut sugar cane, because that's a seasonal job. That's not an every year round job. That's a job for one season. So when you say the reason why that they're bringing those West Indians up here to pick the fruits because Americans don't like to work, that's not an everyday job. That's a job for just one season. Then when the season is finished, what do? They go back to the country. When they finish picking the fruits, the oranges, etc., they go back to their country. That's not an everyday job. So Americans say, why should they work seasonal when they live in the country? Give me a job that I can work all year round. So when they're saying that Americans like to work, when you look at it logically, Americans make leadway for a lot of us that is here, a lot of immigrants that come here to live the way that we're living. Because we have came here and do a lot of jobs that they don't want to do because it's low paying jobs. For instance, a lot of West Indians came in and did babysitting. I mean, a lot of them get treated real bad. I've heard some stories that they get treated so bad because they're immigrants. And then the people that hire them to do babysitting will tell them, if you don't do what I say, I'll make sure you get deported and go back home. No, they can't deport Americans because they live here. So the Americans figure, shit, I ain't gonna do the job babysitting, but I don't have to do no babysitting job because I live here. So you're not gonna pay me no minimum wage and tell me no BS. So that's why you see, it's all about knowing, man. It's all about knowing. That's why when you see a lot of Europeans come here and do babysitting work for minimum wage and they hang it over their head, if you don't do what they say, we'll get you deported. That's why Americans say we're not doing it. So not that Americans are lazy. Americans are not going to do with the bullshit that other countries or islands are going to do because they know better. So we have to change our mentality or our way of saying that Americans are lazy. They're not lazy because a lot of jobs Americans do. There's a lot of jobs that Americans do. For instance, you got the Mexicans coming doing roofing. They did a roof for my brother here in Conyers. And when he asked the people how much money they're getting paid, they were getting paid way less than what the company charged my brother for putting a roof on the house. The people that were doing the job are getting paid way less than what they charged for putting a roof on the house. So you see, that's why Americans say we're not doing it. You're not going to make us work 8 hours and paying us BS. For instance, then again, here we go again. Look at the restaurants. You go to restaurants, you got people making minimum wage, it's $3 an hour, but they're depending on tips to survive. So like I tell a lady, as a matter of fact, this what happened years ago. A friend of mine was working at a restaurant, and he was bringing home at least $300 a night in tips. $400 a night in tips. The bosses get to find out that they're bringing in a lot of tips, so they tell them from now on, you have to give us your tips, and we're going to give you, at the end of the week, a certain amount of money. Because we may understand that those guys were making a lot of money in tips. The salary like to somebody an hour. So I told my friend, listen, if you get cash tips, don't declare it. If you got a tip on a check, you have to declare that. But if the person gives you cash tips, do not declare it. Because the manager can take the money and give you what he feels he giving you and keep the rest for himself. What I tell you, all about knowing, man. All about knowing. Anyway, that was my take on why they keep saying that Americans don't like to work. And I can repeat it one more time. Not they don't want to work. They don't want to work for minimum wage and get in the shitty end of the stick. I'm out of here, man. Peace out, one love.
Listen to this.
Do you know what happens after your funeral? In a few short hours, the crying will die down. And your family are going to start making arrangements to feed your relatives and your friends. Some of your relatives are going to be discussing current events as they eat in Shima, Chihuahua, and Sebi. And some people will call your family to tell them that they can't make it in person because of some emergency. Other people are going to start making travel arrangements to go back to their own homes because life is just too short. And someone in your family is going to start arguing that they contributed more financially than others did. Eventually, the crowd is going to go their separate ways. And every once in a while, your cell phone would ring from people that didn't realize that you had died. In a few days, your children will go back to work. Your employer will begin to search for your replacement. There will be new elections, new scandals, and the traffic on Great East Road will be the same. The Zambia national soccer team will play their games just as planned. In 6 months, your spouse will be watching a comedy on DSTV, and she'll start laughing. The first anniversary of your passing will be celebrated in a grand manner. You will be forgotten at an astonishing pace. Everyone's life will go back to normal. But in a blink of an eye, years are going to have gone by. There will be very few people left to remember you. Now tell me, if people will forget you so easily, then who are you living your life for? You spend your whole life worrying what people think about you. They don't, and they won't. Live your life for you.